Remember when television didn't need a complicated plot to be unforgettable? Just give us two rebellious cousins, a souped-up Dodge Charger, and enough airborne stunts to make gravity nervous. That was the Dukes of Hazzard, a show where outlaws were the good guys, the cops couldn't catch a cold, and every Friday night felt like a car chase through your living room. But what if we told you the real story behind the show is even wilder than what made it on screen? We're talking about millionaire moonshiners, actors who faked their way into stardom, cars more famous than the cast, and stunts so dangerous they'd never be allowed today. Whether you grew up watching Bo and Luke outrun Sheriff Roscoe, or you're just discovering Hazzard County for the first time, you're about to learn 15 strange, surprising, and downright unbelievable facts about the Dukes of Hazzard. So buckle up, hit that horn, and hold on, because this ride through TV history is anything but smooth. 15. Uncle Jesse was secretly wealthy. On screen, Uncle Jesse was the beating heart of the Duke family, a bearded backwoods patriarch in overalls who preached family, honesty, and the occasional illegal moonshine run. He looked like the kind of man who counted every penny and thought a $20 bill was worth framing. But off-screen, the actor who played him was sitting on a fortune. Denver Pyle, the man behind the beard, wasn't just an actor. He was a quiet oil tycoon. Long before the Dukes of Hazzard, Pyle began buying up old, abandoned oil wells that most investors considered worthless. Then came the 1973 oil crisis, and suddenly, those dusty plots were liquid gold. By the time the General Lee was soaring across our TV screens, Pyle was making more from oil than acting, and still kept showing up to set. As he once said, "Acting gives me the cash flow I need for oil speculation, and besides that, I like acting. It's fun." Uncle Jesse may have been fixing fences on TV, but in real life, he could have bought the whole county and still had change for a tractor. 14. John Schneider. Lead his way into the role. Bo Duke may have been the ultimate Southern heartthrob, but John Schneider wasn't exactly raised on red clay roads. In reality, he was an 18-year-old from Mount Kisco, New York, a far cry from Hazzard County. So when he heard about auditions for the Dukes of Hazzard, he didn't just show up. He showed up in character. He skipped shaving, borrowed a beat-up pickup, threw on a scruffy hat, and swaggered in with a beer in hand, claiming to be from Snailville, Georgia, a place that doesn't even exist. He laid on a Southern accent so thick, producers probably asked him for barbecue recommendations, and it worked. They bought every word. The funniest part? He didn't even know how to drive the General Lee yet. That came later. But faking his way into a starring role on a hit show? Now, that's the American dream. 13. The Dukes started in Georgia, before Hollywood took over. Before palm trees and studio sets took over Hazzard County, the Dukes were tearing up the real backroads of Georgia. When filming began in 1978, production hit small towns like Covington, Loganville, and Social Circle. Real southern places with real heat, real charm, and enough humidity to melt a camera lens. Those first 5 episodes feel different for a reason. The tone was rougher, the humor edgier, and the southern grit came naturally. It wasn't just a TV show. It looked like a slice of actual Georgia life. But once the network realized they had a hit, the decision came fast. Pack up and head west. From episode 6 on, The Dukes of Hazzard was shot in sunny California, where studio ranches could be dressed up with a few hay bales and y'all come back now. The vibe may have changed, but that Georgia soul, it stayed baked into the engine. 12. The General Lee's doors didn't work on purpose. Ever wonder why Bo and Luke always slid through the windows of the General Lee like they were late for supper? It wasn't just a cool move. It was by design. On the show, the General's doors were welded shut, mimicking real stock cars built for speed and safety. It gave the Charger its signature swagger and forced the Dukes into those epic window jumps. But behind the scenes, only a few cars actually had sealed doors. Most were left open, so crew members, especially the Teamsters moving cars all day, didn't throw out their backs. Still, on camera, opening a door would have been sacrilege. If you want to catch a rare blooper, check out Season 2, Episode 1. Luke shuts a door, blink and you'll miss it. But for fans, that's a Bigfoot sighting. 11. The real cost of the car crashes. Let's be honest. The Dukes of Hazzard was a weekly excuse to launch cars into orbit. The General Lee flew over barns, creeks, fences, and occasionally reality itself. But every wild jump came with a very real cost. These weren't CGI stunts. They were real steel, real pavement, and real people. Stunt drivers who took bruising hits for our Friday night fun. Harnesses snapped, roll cages failed, and jumps didn't always land clean. One wrong bounce, and someone was headed to the ER. In 1980, tragedy struck when camera assistant Rodney Mitchell died after his truck lost control during a muddy chute. It was a stark reminder that behind the yeehaws were people risking their lives, and the damage didn't stop with people. The show burned through chargers like popcorn at a drive-in. Mechanics were always busy, and chiropractors in LA were probably booked solid for 7 seasons. Behind every epic stunt was a bruised elbow, and sometimes a broken heart. 10. The General Lee got more fan mail than the cast. Bo and Luke had fans. Daisy had a lot of fans. But the real superstar of the Dukes of Hazzard? A bright orange 1969 Dodge Charger with a Confederate flag on the roof and a horn that played Dixie. At the height of the show's popularity, CBS was getting 60,000 letters a month, and over half were addressed to the General Lee. Kids wanted to know how fast it went. Adults wanted to know where they could buy one. Some fans just wrote to say, "You looked awesome jumping that river last week." The car had become more than a car. It was a character, a hero, a pop culture icon with 4 wheels and flawless timing. Warner Brothers didn't miss a beat. The General became a merchandising goldmine. Toys, posters, bed sheets, you name it. It's not often a car outshines its drivers. But when the General Lee hit the screen, even Bo Duke was riding shotgun. 9. Surviving General Lees are worth a fortune. During its 7-season run, the Dukes of Hazzard burned through over 300 Dodge Chargers, all sacrificed to the gods of slow-motion glory. They soared, crashed, flipped, and crumpled like soda cans. For most, the end came wrapped around a hay bale or buried in a ditch. But here's the twist. Only about 17 to 20 original General Lees are known to have survived. And those survivors? They're worth more than most people's houses. A screen-used General Lee can fetch upwards of $250,000, depending on how many epic jumps it made. Even replicas go for 6 figures. In 2008, John Schneider sold his for $230,000, and it wasn't even a stunt car. And in 2012, golfer Bubba Watson bought Lee 1, the very first General Lee from the pilot episode, for $110,000. It now lives in a climate-controlled garage, retired like a war hero. Turns out, all that wreckage created one of TV's most valuable relics. 8. Boss Hogg was a genius. He waddled through Hazzard County in a white 3-piece suit, scheming and sweating like a cartoon villain who just discovered fried chicken. But behind the buffoonish charm of Boss Hogg was an actor with a brain that could have run the entire county, legally. Sorrel Book, the man behind the mayhem, was nothing short of brilliant. He was valedictorian of his high school, entered Columbia University at 16, and earned a Master of Fine Arts from Yale. Oh, and he spoke 6 languages fluently, dabbled in half a dozen more, and once worked in military counterintelligence during the Korean War. To bring Boss Hogg to life, he padded his body, exaggerated a southern accent, inspired by real senators, and turned small-town corruption into comic gold. After the Dukes, Book didn't slow down. He became a prolific voice actor, even conducting orchestras in his spare time. So next time you see Boss Hogg chasing the Duke boys, remember, you're watching a Yale-trained genius pretending to be a walking biscuit. 7. The forgotten film that inspired the show. Before Bo and Luke were outrunning Roscoe in Hazzard County, Their spiritual cousins were doing it on the big screen. In 1975, a little-known film called Moonrunners hit theaters, and it's basically the Dukes of Hazzard with more grit, more whiskey, and fewer freeze-frame laughs. Written and directed by Guy Waldron, the same man who created the TV series, Moonrunners followed two cousins, Grady and Bobby Lee Hagg, who ran moonshine for their Uncle Jesse. Sound familiar? They drove a souped-up car named Traveler, faced off with a crooked sheriff named Roscoe Coltrane, and were narrated by a certain Waylon Jennings. The movie was darker, dirtier, and a lot less forgiving. Characters actually died, plots had consequences, and explosions weren't followed by banjo riffs. When CBS came calling, Waldron cleaned it up, added comedy, and made it family-friendly. The Dukes of Hazzard was born, not from thin air, but from a moonshine-soaked cult classic. 6. The theme song was a country hit. Just a good old boy, never meanin' no harm. You're singing it already, aren't you? The Dukes of Hazzard theme song wasn't just catchy. It was a bona fide country music hit. Written and performed by the legendary Waylon Jennings, Good Ol' Boys hit #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart in 1980 and even cracked the Hot 100. It gave the show instant Southern credibility and became one of the most recognizable TV theme songs of all time. Over the years, it's been covered by country legends, parodied in pop culture, and performed at Duke-themed festivals by the cast themselves. Even people who've never seen a full episode still know that song. And let's be honest, it still slaps. 5. The cast rejected the 2005 film. You'd think a big-budget Dukes of Hazzard movie would be the perfect chance to reunite the original cast. But when the script for the 2005 reboot landed on their desks, the reaction wasn't excitement, it was disgust. John Schneider, Tom Wopat, and Catherine Bach all refused to appear, reportedly reading just a few pages before slamming it shut. Ben Jones, Cooter, didn't hold back. He called it sleazy, boycotted the premiere, and said it had nothing in common with the original spirit of the show. And when the people who made Hazzard County walk away from a Hollywood paycheck, that's not just a red flag, it's a full-blown turn this car around moment. Somehow, the reboot managed to strip all the charm out of the original and replace it with something even Roscoe wouldn't chase. 4. The contract dispute that replaced Bo and Luke. At the height of the Dukes of Hazzard's fame, ratings soaring, merch flying off the shelves, everything came to a screeching halt. Why? Bo and Luke walked out. John Schneider and Tom Wopat were everywhere. Lunchboxes, toy aisles, bedsheets. But while the network was cashing in, the stars weren't seeing a fair cut of the profits. So they did the unthinkable. They quit. CBS scrambled and brought in two new cousins, Coy and Vance Duke, with the same car, same hair, and about the same charisma as a parking cone. Ratings tanked. Fan mail turned hostile. Viewers revolted. Coy and Vance lasted just 19 episodes before CBS backed a dump truck of money up to Schneider and Wopat's homes. Bo and Luke roared back in like nothing happened. The replacements? Never mentioned again. No goodbye, no flashback, not even a "remember those guys?" It's as if Hazzard County collectively agreed to pretend Season 5 never happened, which, let's be honest, was probably the right call. 3. The animated Dukes of Hazzard. If flying cars and freeze-frame endings weren't wild enough, the Dukes of Hazzard went full Saturday morning cartoon in 1983, literally. In The Dukes, Bo and Luke, or rather, Coy and Vance, thanks to that pesky contract dispute, raced across the globe in the General Lee to win prize money and save the family farm. Their competition? Boss Hogg, Roscoe, and a cheating dog named Flash. No, really. Each episode kicked off with Uncle Jesse reading letters to a pet raccoon named Smokey, because of course he did. The animation was pure Hanna-Barbera, recycled sound effects, gravity-optional stunts, and chase scenes that looked suspiciously like Scooby-Doo with a southern accent. Once the real Duke boys returned to the live-action show, They quietly took over the cartoon too. Coy and Vance disappeared without explanation, again. Turns out, even in animated form, Hazzard County didn't have room for stunt doubles. 2. The iconic two-wheel stunt that only worked one way. One of the coolest stunts in the Dukes of Hazzard playbook was watching the General Lee balance on two wheels, like it was trying to defy both gravity and logic. But if you look closely, the car almost always tilted up on the driver's side. That wasn't by design, it was because of one man, Buzz Bundy, the stunt legend who made those maneuvers possible. Problem was, Buzz could only lift cars on the driver's side. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't flip it the other way. It was like being left-handed, but with 3,000 pounds of speeding metal. So directors adjusted scripts and stunt plans just to match Buzz's skills. And honestly, it was worth it. Buzz later performed the same trick in Knight Rider, The Fall Guy, and a dozen action flicks. No wires, no CGI, just pure old-school skill and nerves of steel. 1. The Smallville reunion that flew under the radar. In 2006, fans of the Dukes of Hazzard got a stealthy treat disguised as an episode of Smallville. In Season 5, there's an episode called Exposed, where Senator Jack Jennings shows up at the Kent farm, driving a 1968 Dodge Charger RT that looked an awful lot like a blue version of the General Lee. And here's the twist. Senator Jennings was played by Tom Wopat, aka Luke Duke, while Jonathan Kent was played by, you guessed it, John Schneider, aka Bo Duke. 2 Duke boys, 1 Charger, a tribute to Waylon Jennings in the character name. It was everything but the Dixie horn. To casual viewers, it was just another scene. But to longtime fans, it was a hidden reunion, a nod to Hazzard County tucked into a superhero series. Sometimes, the best yeehaws are the ones whispered. From millionaire moonshiners and Yale-educated villains to airborne muscle cars and outlaw cousins who refused to use doors, The Dukes of Hazzard wasn't just a TV show. It was a full-blown cultural ride. Whether you grew up watching the General Lee jump creeks, or you're just discovering these behind-the-scenes gems, one thing's clear. The story of Hazzard County is every bit as wild off-screen as it was on. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe for more classic TV deep dives, and if you've got a favorite Dukes memory, or a fact that surprised you, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from y'all. Thanks for watching, and as they say in Hazzard County, y'all come back now, you hear?